What's going on, everybody? This is a special one. I'm really excited for this episode of Big Thing. But before we even get into it, before I even tell you a little bit more about my special guest today, make sure you just show a little bit of class while you subscribe to the channel. Notifications so you get more of what's going on, so you get great guests like I have today. And don't forget about that Patreon. You got SEN Live now, 3 episodes a month. You got the rewatches, you got the bonus episodes. It's so much, especially with Schmoedown coming back, new season. So many great things we have coming up. All right, guys, listen. I got the legend, the man himself, Booker T, the WWE Hall of Famer, 2-time Hall of Famer. He is, he's just become, I can proudly say he's become a friend. And I've always been in awe of him as far as, in general, of the way that the things he's done in the past. And I've told the story many times over he was one of the first people, scared the shit out of me when I was working there at the WWE. But he's just become a great supporter. He is not only someone who, you know, what he's done in wrestling, but then he's gone out and done his own thing, whether he's broadcasting with the Hall of Fame show that he does. He also started Reality of Wrestling, which you guys Schmoedown fans know very well. And I want to talk to Book about that. So there's so much I want to talk to him about. And honestly, I don't even know if we're going to be able to cover everything that I want to talk to him about, but we're going to try. And he's a geek like us. He's watching Daredevil right now. He's watching Iron Fist. And we'll geek out about Rocky, because there's so many things I want to talk about Rocky. I want to see. I'm going to guess right now which his favorite one is. I might be wrong, but I'm going to say it's Rocky 3. I might be wrong, but we're going to find out in a little bit. All right, I'm going to stop talking. I got Booker T. Let's do it. It's Big Thing. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Thing. And would you please welcome to the show the man, 5-time champ he is, Booker T. What up, Booker T?
Oh, what's going on, kid?
How are you, man? It's so great to see you. Thank you for taking your time. I know how busy you are, so for you to come on the show means a lot. Thank you very much.
Already. That's what we say here in Houston, man. All ready to go.
You know, it's funny, as I was mentioning up top, it's amazing that we have been able to stay friends, considering you're such a big Astros fan and I'm such a big Yankees fan.
Hey, man, it's like politics. We just don't talk about it.
That's 100% right. That's 100% right. But the first thing I want to get into, so I'll be honest, I got to talk about Reality of Wrestling, man. I'm so impressed with what you guys did over there, and tell me about the inception of it. Right? Tell me about the inception of you leave WWE, you go on, you do your own thing, but then you go, I want to work with young talent. I want to run my own shit. How does that come about?
Oh man, back in 2005 is when we started the wrestling school, and it all came from back when I started wrestling school back in 1990. It was $3,000, and it was an 8-week course, and you can't learn a whole lot in 8 weeks. But it got my foot in the door. I made it work. It worked out for me. Didn't work out for the majority of those guys that went to that wrestling school. So I say when I had a chance to do it, I say I want to give young people a springboard, a chance to actually get into the business properly. The wrestling business has always been kind of like a underground, deal. How do you get in it? There's no colleges or anything like that. So I say, let me open a school, make it a 2-year course, make it affordable, almost like a cell phone bill, so we can get as many people in as we possibly can, as well as, of course, you're going to have that talent that goes on to the next level, but the camaraderies, the journey that these young people has gone on now for almost 18 years. Wow. Has been unbelievable. I've had guys that started with Reality of Wrestling and retired, so it's pretty cool actually to actually be able to fulfill someone else's dream.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm going into this whole thing, and Brad Gilmore, obviously part of Schmoedown, and you and I both have a great eye for talent when it comes to Brad Gilmore, because that dude is just he's so talented and he's so good at what he does. But he had said something that you said, because he and I were on the conversation recently, because I'm going Schmoedown book. I'm going more what I started a couple years ago when you found it. I think it was around 50% sports entertainment, 50% movie trivia. And then the last 2 years, because of the pandemic and everything, it was about 80% sports and 20% sports entertainment. dude, I'm going 80% sports entertainment this year and 20% sports. And some people, whatever. But what I tell people on the phone the other day, I said, you got to understand something. This is a show, and we got to entertain. And Brad goes, dude, that's what Booker says before every show. It's a show. You got to.
Yeah. You got to definitely look at it like that. Otherwise, you'll go into it with the expectations of, you know, they'll believe anything you give them. But you know, you got to make sure you're giving them Shakespeare in order for them to go, oh my God, I got to give an encore here. They want more than just a little bit. They want the whole kit and caboodle. And that's what I try to say. We got some shows coming up around WrestleMania weekend for Reality of Wrestling. And we're going to be doing it with a world-class pro in Dallas. And we say, man, we got to make this a theme. What kind of theme can we have to actually create other than people just coming to watch wrestling? Okay, we got the Sherry Martel Classic going on. Let's get that done to crown the first, Sherry Martel Classic winner, as well as let's have a Texas Legends night. We got a guy by the name of Black Bart here in Texas that taught me so much. Let's honor Black Bart. Hey, let's put Booker T perhaps back in the ring. We got to make this thing an event opposed to just guys coming out and watching wrestling matches. So I totally understand.
Yeah, you want people talking, right? You want to get people excited. And because, as you know, if you, like you just mentioned, if you half-ass it, they smell that shit, man. They know it right away. And it's like, if you put your passion in it and you go, I have this stuff planned out, Book, for the first couple of like episodes that we're doing. And I'm already thinking, okay, I'm gonna twist them there. I'm gonna maneuver them there. They're not gonna see that coming. And you try to, and you want to, and you get excited because then they'll get excited. And like you said, Booker T shows up and wrestles. You're like, oh, did you go last night? What happened? Yeah, I missed it. Booker came in and fought, and it's like, oh shit, I got to tune in.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, you want to get them talking before it actually goes down. I always say, if Elvis came back and did a concert at the Toyota Center and no one knew it, no one will be there. But if they knew it, trust me, it would be sold out every night to watch the King come and do his thing. So I'm all about promoting and giving the fans the ultimate entertainment, giving them the ultimate show, because I remember leaving those karate movies when I was a kid, and if I wasn't chopping somebody, it wasn't a good movie.
It's funny because and by the way, and I watched I was gonna say the A&E special that they did on you, and I knew a lot about you going into it, but I didn't know everything that you went through. I mean, man, I know that I want to sort of say this in the right way, but like I always had respect for you. I just had so much more after coming after that, because my father-in-law came from a very rough background, and he came from a place that, and we just had this conversation the other night, and he came from a place that some people can go in that background, and then there's almost like an excuse of like, well, that's the path I have to go. I have to be in that path. I have to be in trouble. I have to do that because that's all I know, and that's where they go. And there's that rare individual that can get themselves in trouble, get themselves out, and spin it for the good. And that's what my father-in-law did, and it's certainly what you did. And I just, like I said, I have not only respect, but coming through all that and that moment, because you mentioned it inside, you went away for a while, you come back, and it just changes your whole perspective. And do you ever, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you look back on it every day and say, like, okay, that's just one more step to go that way, because complete 180 from everything that when you were a younger man.
I've asked myself, why me quite a few times in my life, finding myself in trouble, for the first time. And then, for the first time, I'm in not just in jail, but I go to prison. It was one of those things like, wow, man, why am I here? What is going on here? But I've always been able to laugh. I've always been able to make light of the situation. And one thing about my situation, I did wrong. It's not something that I wasn't innocent or anything like that. And I say, man, I gotta atone for it. I gotta figure it out, and do better. And that's why even now I still feel like I got that broom sweeping, and cleaning up all that little dirt that I created, when I was a kid running around. Maybe that's the reason why, I have a passion about trying to help young people and trying to give them a second chance, trying to make sure they don't fall into those same footsteps that I have had to walk in. As well as I always say, man, you play the hand you're dealt.
Yeah.
And you try to sometimes you got to bluff and figure your way out. And somehow, by the grace of God, someone helped me out and gave me a chance, and I took advantage of it, and I didn't look back.
No, man, you certainly did. And watching how you got involved in wrestling and hearing you talk about reality wrestling. And I know that there's probably, I think the answer is yes and no for this particular question, but obviously I'm gonna let you answer it. Where is it easier now to get into wrestling, not like the big shows, but is it easier to get into wrestling today than it was when you were coming up?
Oh, heck yeah. It's so much easier to get into wrestling today because not to speak ill towards indie promoters or anything like that, but they'll just set up tent and they'll let anybody come in there and do it, no matter what it looks like. And that's where a lot of young people find their way in this business, not knowing which way to turn, because they're doing a show here, they're doing a show here, they're doing a show there, and then at the end of the night, the promoter can't say if they did a good job or not. They just go, here go your paycheck. Thank you. You know what I mean? So for me, you come to reality of wrestling, you're going to get, taught, from a perspective where it's going to be some constructive criticism. You might think you're good somewhere else, and then you come to reality of wrestling and realize you're not that good at all. So it is an abundance of training grounds out there that perhaps shouldn't be.
And I'm sure, because obviously you're still doing stuff. Hell, you were just doing stuff with the Rumble. I mean, you're very involved with WWE. You're part of the family, as they should be, respecting you for everything that you've done for them and continue to do for them. But I would assume, as a wrestler, and I'm coming in and I pass through your parts and I go, look, man, not only is it Booker T, but he's very involved in WWE, and I'm sure with the product, like, I can get their eyes on me, and that's happened. The WWE has done that. So does it become, because back in the day it was like the territories, and before Vince took over and started taking over all the territories, it was just about those territories. But now with the internet, and even watching that show Heels, they kind of like go into, I don't know, did you watch any Heels? Have you watched any of it at all?
Well, I watched a little bit of it, but it kind of lost me a little bit.
Okay.
And I didn't stay with it.
That's fair. But the fact that, like, it's weird how territories can, like, kind of work now, because there's like internet territories, there's like the reality wrestling has the Houston kind of internet territory, and there are these, but they work with the big promotions now to get it. Now, do you guys have an exclusive deal? Like, if AEW wanted to pick up people from you, could they, or no, it's exclusive with WWE?
No, Sammy Guevara is one of my students.
Oh, okay.
He came out of reality of wrestling.
Okay.
No, we don't have an exclusive deal with WWE or anything like that with our students. Roxy, one of my students, first ROH women's champion. Right now, highly sought by WWE as well. Mace, he's one of my students with WWE right now. So no, it's not exclusive. What we do is, like you say, we have television. We try to get young people that's got that talent to take the most direct route to getting to that next level, and that's being seen on television. And I say that from experience. Yeah. I never worked any indie shows or anything like that when I was coming up, in my career. But I worked on the Global Wrestling Federation television for 18 months straight. And I was on television Monday through Friday. So I say, somebody's going to see me. And if I'm good enough, somebody's going to make a phone call and say, how can I, use your services? So that's what happened. And I try to tell young people, if you're good enough, you're going to be seen on reality of wrestling television. And someone is going to call you. Going out and just working territories, working shows, that right there, you can learn less. You can actually pick up so many bad habits from actually doing that. Get yourself in a group, be a part of a group that's better than you, that's teaching you the what not to do's. And trust me, you'll make it to the next level if you're good enough.
Yeah, and so when you guys are teaching, and there's certain things that you guys have, and I don't know if there's too much, not to give away secrets, or maybe you talk about this or maybe you don't. But so the one thing that I've always heard, the other day, I always have these clips, because I watch I watch so much old school wrestling that like there's always clips that pop up on the suggestion stuff. And there was this shoot interview that Jesse Ventura gave, which is probably all Jesse Ventura gives. But he gave an interview and he was talking about how the way he looks at wrestling now is what he hates. He hates the shit where people come out and they cut the promos and they do the things on the stage with two people talking to each other with the microphones in the middle of the ring, and there's writers to have a full speech. And he goes, in my day, there was no speeches and there was no that. It was Mean Gene had an interview, and you told the person who you're going to go after next week, and blah 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 blah. And that's the old school mentality. It's the stuff that I like too. And when I was there with you guys, it was similar in the fact I remember, these are the points that we wanted to hit. And when I don't know if you remember, you don't remember this, but
I do remember. Yeah.
When I came in, when I came in, dude, I said to because my first event that I ever went to was you and The Rock at SummerSlam. That was the first one I worked. And I came in and it was, okay, Brian had given The Rock, this is what he needs. Booker's going to be doing this. And he's got to, so Rock comes in, and The Rock isn't following a script. He's going through, here are the points that he's going to hit with Booker, and this is what he's going to say. Yeah. And it was great. Same thing with you. It was like, Book, this is what you got to say. Like, we just need to hit this angle. These are the main story points. Do you think scripts have taken away from the opportunity for the wrestlers to get to that next level?
It's kind of like a double-edged sword. It really is. Because, like I say, not to diss any of the young talent out there today, some of them can pull it off. Some of them can't. And that's, I think, because of, I think that the training that we got when we were coming up were different than the training that these young guys are getting today. Our training was literally on the job training,
right? Being
out there in the war zone, bullets flying, and we're having to duck. Make sure we duck low enough, or are we going to get hit? And today, era is totally different. Everything is, here it is, and this is how you do it.
Yeah,
that right there can totally make the moment not feel as real. But there again, my first trip that I ever experienced, leaving Texas, I got on a plane and I went to Japan, and then I went to Korea, and then I went to the Virgin Islands, and I got in WCW, and then we went all over the world. I became a world traveler. I got a chance to see exactly, certain, monuments and landmarks. Okay, so therefore I had so much, in my head that I could actually talk about. I always talk about The Rock, cutting a promo in New Orleans one night. And but we're in Houston the night before, and The Rock cut that promo in New Orleans, and he hit every landmark almost coming from Houston all the way to Louisiana. And by the end of that promo, the people was going crazy, and he hadn't said anything, but he touched every one of those people by literally going, exactly to the spot they came from. So it was amazing being able to formulate that promo, but he learned that over a period of time.
Right.
He didn't learn that overnight.
Right. And that's what I mean. That's where I think sometimes it gets lost. So that's why I asked when reality wrestling, because that's one of the things that I think, my personal opinion, why AEW is popping right now, because they had like that kind of like old school stuff and people wanted to see it. And look, the WWE is always, it's like Saturday Night Live. It's always going to be there, man. It's always going to be there, and there's always going to be talent that's coming in. And I watched a Rumble with my daughter the other day, and we had a blast watching it. It was a lot of fun. But there's something about, I think right now AEW is kind of like making punk rock, right? And so when you guys are teaching stuff, are you going over, do you have writers, or are you more so reality wrestling? Are you guys kind of going a little more old school, or I should say kind of doing what AEW is doing as well?
Well, I give bullet points as far as this is what we need to talk about. Yeah. I try to give the talent that liberty to be able to create. And these young guys these days, man, sometimes you underestimate how talented they really are and how creative they can really be. Two of my students, Cam Cole, Will All Day, we had a show downtown, and it was around Christmas time, and they had to go out and cut a promo, and I gave them bullet points, and they took the bullet points and went all the way to the freaking left and just took it all the way, to a point to where I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then I go, wait a minute, this is good. So for me, I try to give them enough rope to hang themselves, let them make mistakes so we could actually talk about those mistakes. But then again, some of those mistakes may turn out to be exactly what we needed. Right. And put that guy on a track to where he realizes, man, I could actually do this. I could actually, take this to another level. But you got to actually be able to give them that opportunity to actually do that. They got to be able to go out and make mistakes. They got to go out and do things wrong in order for us to actually make them better. And if we think we could just give them the script and they go out there and follow it every time, trust me, they're going to mess that script up every time.
Dude, I agree with you so much.
It's just like talking over a match. You got all of these spots. Trust me, you're going to mess one of them up somewhere and it's just going to screw everything up. So it's no different, really.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think that is the way to do it, because I was even I had Freddie Prinze Jr. on recently, and he was talking and he told a great story about how he had written something for JBL, and he had written something, and JBL was like, all right, let me see. Okay, fine. And Vince is like, no, change all of that and do this instead. And JBL's like, what, this? He's like, I don't know. And JBL wound up doing the one that Freddie did, and Vince was hot. And Vince was really hot about it. And Freddie bit the bullet and goes, no, I told him to do it. And JBL had more respect for Freddie because he didn't throw him under the bus. But it was that, I'm going to hit the bullet points and do that, because it doesn't allow them to move, to be fresh. And what I will also say, and I said this about you recently, and I shouldn't have been shocked because of the two-time Hall of Famer here. But when I went in and we did that show, and you were so busy, you're running through, you're in your office, and you were kind enough to be involved in that storyline. And Brad's like, he just wants you to go over the moments with him. And I was like, okay, great. And I did it once, and you go, do it again, go over one more time. And I went it, and I was like, and I said to myself, I was walking out, Book, I go, if he didn't hear any of it and he just did his own shit, I don't care. It's Booker T. And dude, you hit every spot. I mean, you gave your own flair, but you hit every spot that I said in that moment, and you added your own shit. And I was like, this guy's a fucking legend, man.
That's really what it's about. We had a show in Vegas. Okay. Our first show in Vegas a couple of months ago. And Disco Inferno was our special guest MC.
Yes.
And he had a line that he hit on the show, and I just gave him bullet points. This is what I need to hit, whatnot. Just pretty much all you got to do tonight. And at one point he said, tonight, guys, every match is going to be a 5-star match. And then he would say something else, and then he would say it's going to be a 5-star match. Then he'll move on a little bit further. Then he'll go, it's going to be a 5-star match. And literally, by the second match, the fans were going, 5-star match, 5-star. So it's like, I was like, wow, what a pro. What a pro. I couldn't have told him to actually do that. And it came off that way. That was just something that he ad-libbed and made work. And sometimes you gotta apologize later. Sometimes you say, man, I forgot, man. I totally forgot. And I went off script. You know what I mean? So sometimes you got to literally put yourself in position to fail. And sometimes you may succeed. And that may be that moment where they say, man, we got to get this guy the ball and let him run.
I mean, I think that's what you got to do a lot of times, because it's like, that's how you step up and that's how you make the move. I mean, shit, man, just talking about The Rock. Look what he did from going from Rocky Maivia to becoming the biggest movie star on the planet, because of using his actual personality. And the example that you just used, that was always in there. He just needed to figure out a way to make it work. All right, Booker. So I know that you're excited about it. I'm excited also. It is the moment that we've been waiting for since September, and it is finally here. In honor of the big game, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56, is giving new customers 56-1 odds on either team. But you got to bet just $5, and you get $280 in free bets if your team wins. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in New York, meaning you can bet from almost a third of the country. If Sportsbook isn't in your state yet, play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest for Super Bowl 56. New customers can get a free shot at a $1 million top prize with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use that promo code BIGTHING, and get 56-1 odds on either team. You bet just $5, and you get $280 in free bets if your team wins. That is promo code Big Thing at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56. 21 minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Tennessee. Call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. What I also realized inside of that that special on A&E was how obviously coming up with your brother and the stuff that you with your brother, but I didn't realize how crucial Hogan was to your push inside of WCW, because you hear a lot of just horror stories about Hogan, about how he was just kind of pushing everybody away, and anytime that someone was going to get a bump, he would kind of like, squash them. And this whole thing with Jake the Snake that he was supposed to do, this whole thing, like a bunch of different things that he was, there's countless, but he was good to you.
Well, I wouldn't say Hogan and I and my brother, I wouldn't say we were friends or anything like that. Okay. But he did put a word in for my brother and I to get a push.
Okay.
Now, there's rumor that Hulk Hogan got paid money as well for doing that. So I've always given him props for speaking up for my brother and I. But there's rumor that he made money off of merchandising from Harlem Heat being successful. So that's here nor there. But I thank him for putting the word in for us. The person that was instrumental in my brother and I, in my career was Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious was the guy who put us on the map. Sid Vicious was the guy who let us, live in his apartment for like 3 months. Sid Vicious was the guy that made sure my brother and I got raises on a regular basis. Sid Vicious is the guy that I give all the credit for my brother and I getting in WCW and actually starting off on the right foot, because my brother and I, Sid Vicious, Big Van Vader, pay-per-view, our first main event, our first pay-per-view in Houston, Texas. Sid made that happen.
Oh, I didn't know that. This Sid, because the same thing. I always remember the stuff I remember with Sid is this how he left, because he would talk about like the Warrior. You were there when all that shit went down with the Warrior, when they brought him back in and they
that
stuff. That was, you look at that. I remember, because before the WWE Network got taken down, I watched all that, the being part of that war, man, the WCW and WWE and looking at it. Did you think at one point, did you think that WCW would overtake WWE while you were there?
I never really thought about it. I never really looked at it like that at all. I never really cared about what was going on in the office. I really didn't. I was never one of those guys who wanted to, think about, hey, let's try this, let's do this. I just never was one of those guys, and I didn't care if the company went under, or if the company, no, literally, or if the company, overtook WWE.
You just wanted to do your work.
I was a kid from South Park. And I was making a lot of money, and money that I was making checks that I had never imagined or dreamt in my life. So none of that stuff really ever mattered to me at all. I just wanted to, have some fun at that point in time. Championships and stuff like that was the furthest thing from my mindset. But being the best was always at the forefront. So it's kind of crazy how things worked out for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think that mentality probably is the reason why you got to where you did, because when you look at a lot of the stuff that went down, there was a lot of politics, and it seemed like you stayed out of it, and you just, because I remember, like, the way I got my gig from writing was I submitted, it was right as WCW was bought by WWE, and I wrote a whole storyline about an invasion thing. My personal opinion, what the hell do I know? It's Vince McMahon, he's a billionaire, but I always thought that they should have kept WCW open as a separate company and had WWE, and that was my storyline and the whole thing. But like, you were there, you're one of the first guys that came over, that when they said, okay, we're buying this thing over and we want you on the roster, are you like, all right, fuck it, let's do it?
Hey man, I had a choice to make. Stay under contract with WCW because I still had, I don't know, maybe close to a year on my contract,
Yeah.
and they offered me a 50% buyout. And so I had to walk away from a lot of money. But I was willing to do that because I didn't want to lose my momentum. I felt like I would make that money back in no time. I believed in my talent. I
Yeah.
believed that I fit in with what those guys were doing in WWE, as well as I wanted to test myself. So I was always one of those guys that were, there again. I was having fun. I knew how good I was, and I knew I could work anywhere in the world at that time. And I knew WWE wanted me,
Yeah.
even before WCW ever closed down, years before. Every time my contract would come up, I would get a letter, I would get a phone call, something. A bird would drop, something in my yard and say, "Hey, if you're ever looking for a spot." So I was always secure, with who I was. So when it happened, it happened. A lot of
Yeah.
guys were really sad, and a lot of guys never worked again after that from a major league scale. But I was like, man, let's go. I'm ready to go.
Because you had the strap, right?
I was a champ. I was a U.S.
Yeah.
champ. I was the heavyweight champ.
Yeah.
So I was in high demand at that time, as well as, like I say, it was always a lot of rumors about going to WWF at that time. Could guys like, myself make it there? Of course, coming from WCW, I knew they was gonna be looking to bury everybody, and I looked at it a little bit differently than you did, as far as the invasion angle, and keeping the WCW open as another company. I just feel like it's so hard to compete against yourself. And at that time, it was so many wrestlers that were like prima donnas, man. They were like, it was just like they thought they were big stars, and it would have been like such a hassle from a business relationship perspective. And I was like, man, I would have let it go just as well and raised the flag just like WWE did and let
Yeah.
that thing go.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was one of the biggest angles for sure. What was the first program that you were in over there? Was it The Rock? What or
First, I came in. I dropped Stone Cold Steve Austin.
oh,
Uh,
that was the first one?
yeah,
Was
that was
oh
the first.
wow.
That was the first thing I did. Jumped the
Holy shit.
rail, dropped Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then boom, I broke 3 bones in his back.
Right. You said it, and then they dude, that's the first thing. And he was cool about it, right? He could
Well,
have
it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Things didn't happen the way it's supposed to have happened. But that wasn't my fault either. And he would just, but I always say, man, he could have been one of those guys that went to the front office immediately and said, man, this guy, he's reckless. He doesn't know what he's doing. We're not going to be. And he easily could have put that label on me, but he didn't. And
yeah.
I was one of the guys who survived.
Yeah, well, no, and I think, but I think it goes back to the fact of what you just said, and the reason of you not getting into it, and clearly you're there to do the job, and I've never, from the time I was there to afterwards, any wrestler that's ever worked with you, you don't like. There's a lot of shoot interviews on a lot of people. I don't see a lot about you. I really don't. Not about shit that stuff like we just mentioned with Hogan or other stuff too. You were a guy that you're a wrestler's wrestler, right? And that's why Stone Cold, because you guys are still buddies.
We've always had a lot of respect for each other.
Yeah.
Taker, Rock, we've always had a lot of respect for each other. But it was a competition, but it was a proving ground back then as well. I tell the story all the time about when I first got to WWE, and somebody totally took my words out of context not too long ago. So let me reiterate here. I first got there. I left all my accolades back in WCW. I said, man, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna prove to these guys. Like I tell my students, you got to know how to make it in the locker room before you can make it in the ring. Okay, so I say I'm gonna leave all that behind. I'm gonna come and prove to these guys that I want to be one of the boys. And after a few months addressing in the locker room with all the rest of the wrestlers, which 60 guys, Undertaker, I was walking past him one day and he go, hey man, what you come dress over here with us? And it's a locker room called the TV locker room. It's where all of the cameramen keep their equipment.
Okay.
And it's very few of those guys that be in there because they're running around the arena all day. So the top guys normally would go in there. And I got invited to the TV locker room. And I was like, wow, I guess I made it. I guess I'm one of the boys now. That's what I'm saying over here in the corner. But that right there, it let me know, man, I had proved myself to these guys and they respected me. And 20 years later, still here.
Still here, man, and you're still doing it. It's funny that you say that because I remember, and we've talked about it, and I've talked about it on Collider Live, but just for those people who are tuning in. So for those people who don't know, when one of my first gigs was when I was writing for WWE was at SummerSlam, and I don't remember where we were, but I went down. We were at the hotel, we were at the bar. We sit down at the table, and so it's Arn Anderson, a few other people, and Booker sitting on the left. So I walk over. I'm like, I'm gonna go sit down. This is open chair. So I go to Booker and I go, hey, is this seat open? And Booker looks at me and goes, nah. And I go, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I think he's just fucking with me. I don't know. And so I sit down. Remember, I'm like 23, 24 years old. And I sit down and Booker looks at me like he's in the middle of the ring on Raw. And he goes, I said no. And I just froze, and Arn Anderson grabs Booker's hand and goes, Booker, that's the new boy. That's the new boy. Man, I'm just kidding. Dude, I still got a shit running down my leg because of that.
Oh man, man, again, you gotta earn your stripes.
You gotta earn your stripes. I get it. I love it. I thought it was the coolest shit ever. I mean, you gotta remember, I was a fan, so I'm going, Booker T, just like Trump, man. I mean, awesome. You were cool as hell once we sat down and did that.
Like you say, man. I don't have a whole lot of guys, out there with shoot interviews about me or anything like that. I don't have too many people that say a whole lot of negative stuff about Booker T. The ones that do say Booker T was an asshole is the ones that I told, man, you're a fucking asshole. So those are the guys that say Booker T wasn't a nice guy. I meet people, many, many years later, and the first thing I always ask is, was I nice to you? And they go, man, you was cool, man. You was like the coolest dude in the world. And I learned that from my idol here to my right, as well as over my shoulder here, now right there, Muhammad Ali. Actually. And it doesn't cost you anything to be nice to people, but we're human too. And sometimes I find myself in that human mode to where, just like, say, for instance, I'm eating and someone, tick me off. I'm going to let them know, you're ticking me off here,
right.
So, but I'm always normally a nice guy, as well as, young guys. I'm always going to jig them a little bit, like yourself coming up and just taking a seat,
Oh yeah, of course.
But it's a memory that you remember for the rest of your life.
It is. No, it absolutely was too. But but that's the thing, is that obviously from everything you were accomplished, you're one of the guys. You're part of the team. For me, I was a freaking a month and a half, 2 month writer that nobody remembers anyway. And I realized recently I got thrown under the bus. For bullshit, and actually not even throwing the bus, a lie. What was bullshit. It was funny when I was there, we were at some house show, and I went with X-Pac and Steven Regal. I drove with them, and
that's a rough crew to be hanging out with.
I didn't know, and I'm going, and I'm like, hell yeah, why not? And so I'm in the middle. We're driving, and X-Pac goes, hey man, you want to hit this joint? I go, yeah, why not? I'm not working. And he goes, I thought you were cool. I'm like, all right, great. So I'm smoked, and I'm posted at the house show. I don't know which referee I ran into in the back, but he knew I was fucking blazed, and he ratted me out to Stephanie.
Man,
that was the first part of it. And then she was just like, are you, but she didn't care that I was, because I wasn't working. I wasn't on the clock. And then I didn't say anything about who I was with. I didn't say anything. I didn't say a fucking word. And so I interviewed X-Pac. This is 2 years ago. When it happened, it was about 20 years ago. But when X-Pac I interviewed 2 years ago, and he goes, yeah, Stephanie told me you ratted me out. I was like, what? I ratted you out? I didn't even mention I was there with you. And I was like, but I never fit in over there. I just from it just, you know how it is. It's like, first of all, I happen to agree when I listen to Jericho, because I've been closer to Jericho. When you listen to I don't blame wrestlers for not wanting people to write for them and have dialogue and shit for them. And who the fuck is this kid from Los Angeles? I've been in this business for a while. I never took any offense to any of that shit. I knew that it was fun. It was cool. But yeah, it's tight, man. It's tight over there. It's like you got to crack in.
That's one of the, like you just said, you went and hung out with, X-Pac, and Regal there for a second. That's all it takes in this business to find yourself caught up. I talk to people about that all the time. They say, who is your buddies with? Who'd you ride down the road with and hang out with? You can count them on one hand, over the 30-year career of people that I hung out with, and I always say, those little bitty things is what get you caught up in this business. You got to be ultra focused if you want to make it to the next level in this business. Having friends is not something, I wouldn't say having friends is not something you want or something that you need, but in this business, you got to be thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, your family, and in making it through this war. And at the end of the day, it's like Jericho and I, we weren't great friends when we came up through the game. We were competing against each other. We want to be the best. Now we're real cool with each other. You know what I mean? Nothing but love. But when you're on the grind in this business, you better stay focused because there's so many distractions. I tell the story. I was in Daytona Beach one day, and I was in a hotel with a bunch of guys, and then the cocaine came out. And they're like, let's party. And I'm like, guys, I'll meet you guys at the bar. You know what I mean? Because I knew that one moment could get me caught up, and it could be over. Yeah. One moment. And I learned that from being in the back of that police car, at a young age. One moment, literally, I was facing 5 to 99 years in prison.
Jeez. But isn't that the thing, though, Book, is in the fact that, like, it's that moment where there is that stuff that you can go back in the past and you go, well, if I could have changed that one particular moment, then I wouldn't have gone to prison. I wouldn't have done that. But the hindsight of that is, but you wouldn't have really become who you are today had that not happened.
I wouldn't change one thing,
right?
As far as that goes in my life. I think prison saved me, actually. I met some really smart guys in prison, man, that was there. And they shouldn't have been, not saying that they was innocent or anything, but they seemed like they was smart enough to know better. And I learned so much that 18 months that I was locked up. I really did. I learned about myself. And I knew I wanted better. I knew I wasn't the kid that was going to be on the corner, drinking a 40 with his buddies. And he was, 40, 50 years old, still in that same corner. I knew that. Right. But there again, finding your way there is something that you really gotta have working for you. And for me, I always say, when someone stick their hand out to you, and you've been in that situation, opposed to thinking, yeah, I'm a sellout if I take that hand. You take that hand, and hopefully when someone is in that position, you can do the same for them. That's what I was taught. I got the name of Bruce Kasarch. He paid for me to go to wrestling school. He helped me get my first real car, my Z28. He was a guy that gave me a helping hand, and say, man, I'm gonna help you out. You know what I mean? If you want to do this wrestling thing, I'm gonna help you out. And paid that money for me to go. And I was like, wow, man, what a dude. You can't judge anybody. You just gotta look at life literally right in the eye and take it for what it is.
I agree. I think it's a matter of not judging anybody, but also not judging the things that happen in your past, because you never know how that's going to shape the future. I agree with you 100%. And so a couple questions I think that you probably answered before, but I got to know just for my own few. Just a couple of quick ones. Who's your favorite person you've ever been in the ring with, like match wise?
Chris Benoit.
Chris Benoit.
Nothing top that for me. I've had a lot of great matches, singles matches, but those matches were like, it was like real, like Spartan, like gladiator stuff. Everything was like just like on the fly. It was just like as real and intense as you could possibly feel it. At certain times, we would literally slow down to where you could hear nothing but the crowd, and we're in the middle of the ring just listening to the crowd and just say, hey, man, don't move, okay? Just stay right there. We got them. It's one of those moments, so those matches, that best of 7 series in WCW, definitely put me on the map and made me believe that I could actually do this.
Yeah. So what about best on, who do you think the GOAT on the mic is all time?
People say Ric Flair, and I love Ric Flair, but The Rock, it's nobody better than The Rock. I give Rock that mantle just because, man, he was dynamic. Everybody knew how good this guy was, and everybody knew how big, he was going to become outside of wrestling. So, nobody better than The Rock.
And what about greatest WrestleMania match?
Oh man, Steamboat Savage.
There he goes. Yes.
And I say that because that's what made me want to be a professional wrestler. That match where those guys went out there, and it was just dynamite. It was just everything was explosive. Talking about guys that had like first, second, and third, and sometimes fourth gear. Awesome. I remember my brother and I, we first got into business. We was working each other in Dallas, in Galveston, Texas, actually at the Moody Civic Center. Yeah. And we recreated that match, and I was Steamboat, my brother was Savage. And it was awesome, man, to try to do something like that. That's what made me want to be in the business.
It's my favorite match of all time. And I always, and I recently, so after I left WWE, I took a break from watching wrestling for probably like 15 years until I started getting into Schmoedown, because it was just, it's like I worked there, saw how everything happened, and I don't know, I was just kind of put off a little bit. Then I got back into it, started watching it, but then I started to, when I got to WWE Network, I started to catch up on all the stuff that I had missed, and people kept talking about Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker being like the greatest WrestleMania match. It's a great match. It's really good. Yeah. It's a great match. But it ain't Steamboat and Savage. It just isn't. There was something about that match. I watch that match at least two or three times a year. I watch that match, and I always, because of the storytelling. So when did everybody talk about, even when he was in WCW, did everybody talk to Randy about that match? Like always, did people always talk about that match to him?
I'm sure he's gotten a lot of questions. I know I asked him about it because it was a highlight for me, and he was telling me, the dynamics that went into actually being able to create that, how working on the house shows, those guys pretty much put that thing together. I remember one match, it was on TV, and man, it was so freaking awesome. It was when Macho Man came off the top rope with the bell on the Savage's throat.
His larynx. He got his
yeah, exactly. But that match, if young people, young guys in the business, young girls in the business, go back and watch that, and forget about the match for one moment. Just forget about the match for one moment and just watch the crowd and try to feel for one moment, how can I try to recreate that? How can I get to that point to where the crowd is acting like that when I just walk to the ring? Because it seemed like a heavyweight fight, between Ali and Frazier, and the fans were nuts about what was going on. And when Savage went down, man, I always talk about being able to feel, being able to make that emotional connection, for a tear to actually formulate in one's eye and roll down the cheek. That's what that match created. And if young people can feel that, this business definitely can be special.
It was so good. And I remember even when they were talking about that match on the A&E thing, and the way that they cut it was so funny when Hogan's like, no, they weren't trying to steal our spotlight. And they cut the Steamboat. He's like, dude, we totally trying to steal the spotlight. They did, man. To take it away from Hogan and Andre the way that they did, it was so special. But all right, last question as far as wrestling before I move into some TV and stuff. Who do you think right now, any promotion, is the biggest star in wrestling?
Well, I try not to look at guys like Roman Reigns, okay? Just because he's set. Yeah. He's a guy that we're gonna always put at the top as far as he's there. But as far as guys that just popping up and really making a huge difference, the way the business is being looked at, and they're doing it from an old school perspective, and that's MJF. I'm gonna tell you right now, the reason I say that is because we're not talking about any of his matches, because you don't remember any of them.
Right.
And that's what good wrestlers, that's what they do. the intangibles. You wonder why you are so intrigued with this guy so much more than you are with everybody else on the roster, and you really don't know what it is. It's those little bitty small things that is being done that goes quite, well over your head. You just don't see them. It's like the wind. You can feel it, but you can't touch it. And that's what a guy like MJF is bringing to the table.
You think we'll ever see MJF in WWE, or you think he's an AEW lifer?
No, man, I really like the way this kid is doing business and using the internet. Just like he said, he's gonna in 2024, he's gonna start a bidding war that's never been seen before. That's putting my boss on notice that hey, I just work here. I'm just an employee. This is a business. At the end of the day, and I think if football players and basketball players thought one-sided, they would be on one team for their careers. They're thinking about making some money at the end of the day, and I think that's what this business has always been built on. It's about making money. I always hear the guys talk about going out there and having great matches. That's cool, all in all. If I had some great matches along the way in this business, that's cool. But I'm thinking about how much money I can make more than anything.
Yeah, and especially when you said it before, it's about you, but it's about family, and it's about taking care of your family, and that's the main thing. But all right, switching away from wrestling for a second, before we jumped into the conversation here, I brought up to you, I said, hey, so what are you watching right now? You said Daredevil, and you just finished Iron Fist. Did you start watching those because of any of the Marvel shows that are on now, or because of Spider-Man, or you just decided, hey, this shows I wanted to watch for a while?
You know what? It's not even shows that I want to watch or anything like that. I just found myself at home trying to figure out, man, I want to watch something, but what do I want to watch? And then, man, my wife would say, let's watch the Iron Fist. It's Marvel. I like action. And I started watching it, and I was like, man, this is, really intriguing. I like the story. I like the action is okay, but I'm really off into the acting more so than just the action. Just because I got a show, Reality of Wrestling. I just did a piece with one of my wrestlers, Will All Day, and actually the theme of that piece that I did, it came from the Iron Fist. So
you've done that throughout your career, right? Whether it was the Warriors or a lot of things. You've been such a movie fan that you've taken.
I've always tried it. King Booker, I looked at, the Pope and Forrest Whitaker, so I've always just been trying to figure out how to create.
Yeah.
More so than anything.
Yeah. So Iron Fist, and then you watched Daredevil. Have you watched The Punisher yet?
No, but I am on the episode where Daredevil is feuding with the Punisher. So I'm going to get to the Punisher next.
You got to watch that.
I'm just trying to figure out how can I, and the thing is, I binge watch, so I'll be through with a season in less than a week. And Daredevil, they got 3 seasons, so I'll be with it for at least a couple more weeks. But I just love, like I say, the story, the action, the production of it, as well as trying to figure out how I could use it.
Yeah.
As well as use it with my students, because I think with wrestling, the acting has been taken so much away from the wrestler to actually be able to go out there and really try to see exactly how good can I get. I always knew when I was playing the King Booker role, I was thinking about Hollywood. I was thinking about a producer or a director saying, man, I got to get this guy a call. He's good. You know what I mean? So for me, to be able to use that there again for my students, to be able to enhance their knowledge of the acting with professional wrestling, which is more than 50%, they're going to need that.
Yeah, and I think that it's a smart thing to do when you're blending the theatrical with the performance and all that. When you're watching, Matt Serra. I don't know if you know Matt
at the Terra Serra.
So Matt and I very similar to you and I. The Matt, where you and I kind of connected again through Schmoedown. Matt was watching a lot of the movie content that I did, and then we just started to become buddies. And similar to you, he's such a like big movie fan, right? And so what he does, and he's traveling all the time for UFC or whatever he's doing, and you're traveling. So when you're traveling, are you watching constantly? You watching movies and TV and taking those notes, but also just entertainment as well? Is that and because you're a big fight fan too? So how do you balance it out? What are you watching when you're on the plane?
I'm actually on the Switch.
Oh, are you?
Playing The Witcher, or playing some golf or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. Uh, I'm a big gamer.
Oh, okay.
I've always been a gamer, forever. But there again, I'm always on the road, and UFC is something that I love. Boxing is something I really have a passion
Yeah.
for. Keith Thurman, Mario Barrios coming up this Saturday night. I cannot wait for that. But yeah, man, I'm always linked in because the show, I'm always trying to get stories. I'm always writing something. I always got my book with me, my little composition notebook, writing down something because there's always something happening, especially in the sports world. And for me, to be able to make the transition from professional wrestling to broadcasting, um, you know, uh, being able to talk about something that I really love, being able to be a part of something that I never thought I would be able to be a part of. Like, I'm in the press room for the UFC fights. I'm talking to Dana White. It's stupid. I'm like, wait a minute. How did this happen? But I remember Frank Sinatra being at Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali fight, and he was a photographer. And I always say, man, that's what I want to be like. One of the most famous people in the world, Frank Sinatra, he's got a camera taking pictures, So to be the regular guy for me is so freaking awesome.
Yeah. Who's your favorite boxer of all time? Not including Ali. Not including Ali.
Not including Ali. Man, everybody ranks so low.
Yeah.
Under him, but of course, I would probably go with Evander Holyfield.
Me too.
Yeah.
Holyfield. You know what? The fight that got me for Holyfield that I was always a fan of Holyfield after with the Buster Douglas stuff and him coming up, but it was high school. I watched him fight. I don't know if you remember this fight.
I already know.
Which one?
Dwight Muhammad Qawi.
No, but that's a great fight too. That was an amazing fight. Burt Cooper.
Okay.
Burt Cooper.
Okay, yeah, he almost lost. He should have lost that fight.
He
should have lost that fight. Burt Cooper actually, the referee saved Evander Holyfield in that fight. That's how much I know about boxing.
Yeah, man, he landed on the ropes. He landed on the ropes, and he should have knocked him down. But and I remember. But the thing is, there was a couple things that Evander said in that made me fall in love with him immediately as a fighter. He was one of my biggest problems with boxing for a long time, and still continues, is that the way that unlike the UFC, where there's a ranking system, you got to fight the number 2, number 3 contender. We'll negotiate and do all that, but it's one division, it's one system. That's who's in line. With boxing, it's like, nah, I'm never going to fight the number 1 contender. I'm never going to do that. Holyfield's like, I'm fighting who is in contention. That's what I'm doing. I'm the champion. That's what I'm going to fight. And whoever it was he was supposed to fight, wasn't Tyson at that point, but it was somebody else, dropped out of the fight at the last minute, and then Burt Cooper just stepped in. And for the first time in his career, he was knocked down. And Holyfield just came back and fought. And then the Riddick Bowe fight in the first fight in the 10th round was still, I think, the greatest boxing round in history. If you watch that round, anybody listening, watch the 10th round of Bowe versus Holyfield 1. And it's insane. It's like something out of a Rocky movie. And yeah, he's outside of Ali, he's my favorite fighter for sure as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just because his true grit. I mean, he would bite down on his mouthpiece. He wasn't the biggest dog in the fight, but man, his heart, man, was big as all of Texas. And I swear, man, Evander Holyfield, actually, had conversations with him, and he loves talking about when he was in the Olympics more than anything. And awesome fighter, yeah.
I was going to ask you, so you've had a chance to, did you ever interview him, or you just kind of shot the shit with him?
No, I interviewed Evander Holyfield, and it was a great interview. Of course, I've got a chance to hang out with him a little bit, in certain sections. But to actually talk to him, for me, of course, everybody want to talk about the Mike Tyson bite. Right. But for me, I like taking guys like that to a place to where they really feel something. And I tell you, talking about the Olympics and all of those guys that came up out of the Olympics with him, man, it had to be a special time in boxing for someone like him.
Yeah. All right. Last thing to talk to you about before I let you go here. As we both mentioned, both boxing fans, both major Rocky fans, right? So, and I made a prediction in the beginning of this, and I said Rocky 3 was your favorite. Was I right?
Yeah, you was right.
Awesome.
But just because I love the role of Mr. T. Mr. T
Yeah.
played a hell of a role. The best role I think I've ever seen Mr. T actually play. He was so convincing in that role as well. There again, just the story of it was awesome as far as Mick saying, "Look, man, this guy knock you into Morrow Rock." You know what I mean? It's my job. It's my job. So when you said I've been fighting setups, that's what you said, Mickey. I've been fighting setups. So for me,
it wasn't setups. It was good fighters. I'm telling you, man, dude. I watched. I can't even tell you how many times I watched it. We did a whole. My daughter and I just started rewatching. This is where I said, I love my kids more than anything in the world, but I fell in love with my daughter even more when she was like, "Dad, I want to watch Rocky." I was like, "You sit down. You can have what you got. Any ice cream you want. What you just said, beautiful." And we watched. We're in Rocky 5 right now. It's brutal, but we're watching it.
But you know what I like? The whole Rocky series. All of them had different flavor.
Yeah.
All the way up to the end. They've all had different flavors, and a lot of people say, "I didn't like this one. I didn't like that one." But for me, the Rocky franchise has been one of the only franchises that has literally played out to the end to where you could go, man, that was pretty awesome. You're not looking at how good the next one was opposed to how bad the last one was. You're not looking at it like that. The series actually captured something for everybody all the way to the end. I think, and I don't think we've seen the end of it.
No, are you excited for Creed 3? Well, Creed 3 comes out in November or December. So is that one of the ones that you'll be at the theater watching?
You know what? I don't know if I'll be at the theater watching it, but I definitely will be watching it immediately when it come out. Nowadays, they got this stuff where you can just sit at home and.
I'm with you, man. If I can watch it at home in my office, I'd rather do that. All right, Book. Tell them where. So if people want to see reality wrestling and they want to check out Hall of Fame, where do they go?
Oh man, just go to the YouTube channel, Reality Wrestling /YouTube. You can catch Hall of Fame on there on a weekly basis. You can catch all of the reality wrestling shows as well as content that we just put up on a regular as well. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Booker T5X. That's the word 5X, as well as you can catch me. No, that's 5X on Twitter. That's right. That's my bad. Of course, Instagram, same thing, Booker T5X. We're just doing our thing, man. Of course, like I say, over this WrestleMania weekend, get ready because reality wrestling is going to be doing some big things, and you're going to be able to see that as well on Fight TV. So make sure you checking out your Fight TV and check out the listings when Reality Wrestling Class with World Class Pro in Dallas, Texas. It's going down. Sherry Martel Classic, first ever, the inaugural Sherry Martel Classic is going to be going down as well. So guys, check me out. I'm always around.
All right, and I will put the links to Reality Wrestling in the link of this description, so you can go and you can check that out as well. And I'll put a little iCard there also, so you can just click on it, make it easier for you, and go check out Book. And the biggest question of all that I didn't ask is, when's Booker T coming back to the Schmoedown, man? When are we going to see him?
I'm brushing up. I'm brushing up. All right. One thing about this thing, man, preparation is the only luck you're ever going to have when you're messing around with the Schmoedown. So I'll be ready. The summer is coming. The summer of tea is coming.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the great Booker T. Make sure you check out the Reality Wrestling. And Book, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me, man. I look forward to doing it again.
Oh, you got it, bro.
All right, guys, so check it out. And once again, please subscribe to the channel. Show a little bit of class, will you? Just announce. That's all we're asking for here. Do that. Make sure you do that. Check out the Patreon. Do the whole thing. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. For Booker T, I'm Kristian Harloff. See you next time.